Have you ever tried to create a color grade from the inspiration of another image, but when you tried to recreate that look, it just never really turned out the way you wanted it to? I personally struggled with that exact problem for the longest time until I figured out this one trick. That was breaking down my image by the highlights, midtones, and shadows. Now, I know this doesn't sound like a novel concept, but stick with me. I personally coach a lot of photographers on the concept of color grading, and they always seem to get overwhelmed when they look at the big picture, but they don't think about all the little moves that go into making up that picture. And sometimes, yeah, for sure, it can be a lack of not really knowing the tools you're working with, but most times it's that feeling of overwhelm. So by breaking down a shot strategically with this 3-step method, it then becomes so easy to create any look that you want. But I'm not just gonna talk about it, I'm gonna show you exactly what this looks like in real time. So let's jump into Lightroom and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Okay, so I've got a photo like this, and let's say that we want to take it to look like a scene like it was shot from Top Gun Maverick. So I've already dialed in my lighting to fit the scene perfectly, and I didn't take you through that process because I know you're here for color grading. So if you do want to see more on like how to grade a photo like another reference photo like from a movie, then let me know in the comments below. But for now, let's just dial in the concept of our color in the highlights, midtones, and shadows. So when I'm looking at trying to copy a grade from another image, then a great way to go about this is by starting off with your highlights. So once we look at our image here, a reference image, we need to ask what's going on in the highlights. Where is this image being pushed? So when we look at the highlights here, I'm seeing mainly in like places like his forehead, that is going more towards this yellow. And then when we think about the midtones, that's areas like maybe this water, even possibly into the sky, a little bit into his shoulder, and that's basically pushing the same way. And a lot of what I like to do most often is push my midtones the same way as the highlights, and I find that that gives me a really great grade overall, and it also makes the process pretty easy. So when we even look into the shadows, let's look into his pants. So these are more neutral and true blacks. So now we know exactly how to break down a grade. So we're going highlights first, then the midtones, then the shadows. So we know that the highlights are going yellow, we know that the midtones are also pushing that same yellow, and we know that the shadows are pushing more towards that blue because that's going to counteract and take out a lot of those yellows that are in the shadows. And I'll show you exactly what I'm meaning here. Let's go into grading this image exactly like this Top Gun look. Okay, so when it comes to creating a heavier grade, I'm mainly going to be pushing in a little bit of tone into the globals. Now, how I know what tone I generally want to be pushing into my globals is mainly whatever color I'm seeing within the overall image. Even within the highlights, that can be a great indicator. But for this image as a whole, it's going fairly warm. And it's sticking more to this yellow tone, like we were saying within these highlights on his face. So what we're going to do is we're going to push in this yellow tone here into our image. So I'm just going to start dialing this up here. Now we can go too far, then we're going to pull it back just a little bit. Okay, that's a great technique I love to use, is go too far and then pull back. Now, I generally don't like to push my global wheel too far right off the start because I don't know if my highlights are going to be kind of the main factor that are going to help push this image. So I like to kind of keep it on the lower end just until I figure out if I need a little bit more boost. So I'm just going to pull that back a little bit here. Okay, set it around like 64. Now I'm going to push in that same color, that same hue into the highlights. Now I'm going to push that up. Now I'm going to go pretty aggressive on the highlights here because we're getting a really heavy tone in here. Okay, now we're going to go to the midtones, push in that same color, just as the globals, the highlights, same tone. So we're going to push that in. Okay, now we're getting this pretty aggressive look here. I just want to interrupt the video quick to let you know that if you are looking to take your photos to the next level so that you can start charging more for your work, I've created a solution just for you called Color Grade Like a Pro. If you want more details, you can find that in the description below. All right, let's get back to the video. Now you remember me saying that these blacks are more neutral, which means like they're more true black, the shadows are leaning more true black. Then what we need to do is try and match these blacks in here more to what we're seeing even within his pants. So we need to try and recreate that with our shot. Now, a great way to do this, and this is often what I do for my shots, is I will push opposite of the highlights in the midtones. What that's going to do is it's going to neutralize my blacks. So I'm going to bring this down opposite of that color. So that color's up in here. We're going opposite. Okay, so kind of in this deeper blue. Let's zoom in so we get a nice clear picture of what's going on. Let's raise up some of these blues here. Now we could go too far, and now we're actually adding in blue to our shadows. We don't want that. We just want a neutral black. So we're going to pull this back. And somewhere around here is looking good to my eye, but I don't know always until I turn the eye on and off. So I'm going to turn this eye off and on. It is introducing a little bit of blue still, so I don't want too much. Let's go to about 12. Turn the eye off and on. There. It's fairly neutral there. Okay, so when we come out here in our entire image, now we can see that if I were to turn this off, the image is looking polluted in the shadows, which makes the whole image look warmer. But once we balance out our blacks, that actually helps give us more of a true image. All right, now when we analyze our photo to make sure that, yes, we did achieve this look, we're gonna break down the shot the same way. So we're gonna look at the highlights within our photo compared to the highlights of our reference. So let's go in. Let's look at the highlights. Same with the highlights on his face. Are we getting the same tone in here? Yeah, we definitely are. Okay. And then when we look at the midtones, I'd say like the midtones would be kind of like the sky, even maybe like on these pants. All right. Are we getting kind of this yellowy burnt tone in there? I would say, yeah. Yeah, we definitely are. And then when we look at the shadows, like in the pants, are we getting those neutral blacks? We definitely are. Now, one thing we could do to make sure that this look really sells, so that we are achieving this look as a whole, is making sure that we go back into our color mixer tab once we pushed in our tone. Because sometimes before we grade, we kind of think that we're achieving the colors, but oftentimes I found that once I'm done color grading, I need to go back into my color mixer tab and just kind of tweak a few colors. So maybe one of the things could possibly be even like the sky. So if we go back in, just like maybe lower the luminance a little bit on that sky, just to like kind of match some of this water here. And even on the skin tones, let's kind of see where we're sitting on the skin tones here. They're looking a little bit more red. So maybe like, let's try pushing a little bit more orange in those reds. Okay. All right. So you can see that just by breaking down an image by the highlights, midtone, shadows, we can see what colors are being pushed in. And then from that point, we can start pushing in those colors into our own scene. And just like that, color grading can become extremely easy to do. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, let me know what resonated with you in the comments below. And if you want to see more videos like this, I think you'll enjoy this video as well. I'll see you over there. Peace.